Exposed. Incredible 800K lawsuit against ICE for detaining amazing Army veteran in wheelchair. Jack Thompson, a decorated Army veteran, never expected his life to spiral so quickly from a simple traffic stop. On that sunny afternoon, the lack of a turn signal had been a minor oversight, one that could happen to anyone. Yet moments later, as he sat in his wheelchair on the side of the road, handcuffed and surrounded by agents, he was reminded of horrors he'd fought against overseas. How did he go from serving his country to being treated like a criminal? The confusion surged inside him. He recalled the pride he felt wearing his uniform, protecting freedoms that now felt so distant. Jack's heart raced, and he felt the heat of humiliation wash over him. He wanted to yell, to scream that he was a veteran who had fought for this very country, but he had been silenced. He felt trapped inside his own body, both by his wheelchair and by an unjust system that didn't recognize his sacrifice. How could a man who laid his life on the line be relegated to this nightmare? The news spread like wildfire through Maplewood, igniting a firestorm of anger and disbelief. Jack's sister, Emily, juggled caring for her own family while standing up for him, reaching out to anyone who might provide a voice. "This isn't just about Jack," she insisted. "It's about every veteran who deserves respect." But burdened by financial strain, she could barely keep up with the mounting pressures. Lawyers' fees, community outrage, and their own fears for Jack's future reverberated ever louder. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Alone in his home, Jack constantly replayed the moments leading up to his detention. Military discipline was ingrained in him, and now it only served to heighten his frustrations. Each sleepless night became a cacophony of despair, filled with memories he wished to escape rather than confront. How could he ever feel safe again? He recalled his comrades, their shared laughter, the quiet moments of camaraderie, and now, in contrast, felt so isolated. The walls of his modest home loomed larger, suffocating him. As his family gathered evidence for a lawsuit, he couldn't shake the dread twisting in his gut. What if they lost? The potential of an 800K declaration felt insurmountable, as did the very idea of being paraded through the courts like a token. He feared becoming just another statistic, another story of veterans failed by the system, lost in a legal maze where no one was listening. The day of the first motion hearing approached with a foreboding weight. As the courtroom buzzed and the air crackled with tension, Jack's resolve wavered. He envisioned standing tall, shouting at the injustice. But the reality was a lonely wheelchair and a legal fight he never sought. As he locked eyes with Emily, he felt their common bond shimmer with desperation. Would this fight bring justice, or was it destined to be another instance of institutional indifference? The moment of truth loomed, and with it, the question that eclipsed all others. Could he reclaim his dignity and prove that the price he paid was not for naught? The day of the motion hearing dawned bleak and overcast, mirroring the internal storm swirling within Jack. He was acutely aware of the discomfort of being in a public space again, especially one that radiated hostility and confusion. As he wheeled himself into the ornate courtroom, uncertainty gnawed at him. The polished wooden furniture and solemn faces of the gathered lawyers and spectators served as an unsettling reminder of his predicament. Despite feeling exposed, Jack sought to channel the resolve he'd accumulated over the years, a strategy he learned on the battlefield. His thoughts flickered between memories of his military training and the harrowing experience of his confinement. Focus. Stay centered. You've faced worse. Yet the echo of his own heartbeat pulsated in his ears, reminding him of his vulnerability as he looked over at Emily, who gave him an encouraging nod. As the judge entered, Jack's world narrowed to that single point of reference. He felt a jolt of adrenaline rushing through him as she took her seat. It was now or never. This was more than just a legal proceeding. It was a chance for him to reclaim the narrative that had been wrested from him. The attorney's voices faded into a distant hum, while he rehearsed in his mind the details of his story. The opposing counsel stood and positioned themselves with an air of authority, ready to dismiss Jack's case. With every dismissal of his dignity, a fire ignited within him. The attorney's words dripped with condescension, reducing his military service to an irrelevant backdrop. He was not detained unjustly, the lawyer argued, poring over bureaucratic jargon like a toxic salve. The actions taken were necessary given the circumstances. Jack clenched his fists, fighting the urge to stand and demand his worth be acknowledged. His military training had taught him to suppress emotions during tense situations, but today, he found that the weight of this injustice must be confronted head-on. He was no longer just Jack Thompson, the soldier confined to a wheelchair. He had become an emblem of resilience against indifference. Seeing Emily inching closer to the edge of her seat, he focused instead on the judge, knowing he had the power to change the course of this moment. Perhaps the purpose of this lawsuit wasn't merely about the financial reward, but about speaking the truth that had been silenced. It was about reshaping perceptions. He envisioned the courtroom lights shining brightly on him as the spotlight of justice. Jack's opportunity came when the judge invited him to speak, and he wheeled himself forward, heart racing. "Your Honor," he began, his voice low but steady, "I did not sacrifice so much just to be treated as a criminal. I fought for freedoms, not just mine, but for everyone's right to dignity." The words spilled from him like salve on an open wound, igniting an inner strength he hadn't felt in years. The gasps that rippled through the courtroom were a reminder that he wasn't just fighting for himself. He was advocating for all those who remained unheard. He spoke of the heavy toll his experiences exacted from him and emphasized the pressing need for change. As he fought back tears, a sense of empowerment surged within him, battling the weight of self-doubt. When he finished, the silence held a breath of possibility. The room recognized that Jack Thompson was not merely seeking reparation, he was demanding respect, a fundamental realization that stretched beyond individual entitlement. As the hearing drew to a close, Jack felt a newfound determination settle deep within him. No matter what ruling the judge would deliver, one truth was indisputable. He was no longer just a victim of circumstance. He was reclaiming his story. But even as hope flickered, looming questions intertwined with the future. Would this newfound voice be enough to inspire real change? Or would it lead him to face deeper threats that lingered in the shadows, preparing to undermine his resolve? As he left the courthouse, a wave of uncertainty washed over him. What awaited him next could shift the balance between despair and redemption. Jack understood that this fight was only beginning, a battle stretching far beyond the courtroom's confines. The path ahead remained shrouded in mystery, but he felt empowered to navigate it no matter the obstacles waiting to surface. The moment had come. A realization that he must confront not only the system but also the truths hidden within his own struggles as he moved forward. The aftermath of the hearing left Jack in a peculiar state. As he wheeled himself through the courthouse doors, the muddy sky above mirrored the tangled thoughts spiraling in his mind. His pulse steadied with the adrenaline, but was soon replaced by a suffocating cloak of uncertainty. Emily walked beside him, her determination stemming from the conviction that this battle was far from over. "What now?" she asked, her brow furrowing as they maneuvered the bustling sidewalk. Jack inhaled deeply, the crisp air filling his lungs like a reluctant promise. "I have to organize my thoughts, prepare for the next steps." But beneath his measured words lay the flickers of doubt. Every effort to reclaim his narrative also brought forth questions he had never confronted. Would speaking out really catalyze change, or was he merely a ship sailing into an uncharted storm? In the days following the hearing, Jack retreated into his apartment, seeking solace in the familiarity of his environment. His wheelchair seemed to anchor him, a tactile reminder of the battles he fought, not just against the past, but the pervasive doubt that taunted him. He started a journal to articulate his feelings, hoping clarity would emerge from the chaos. Each entry unveiled layers of confusion, loneliness, and anger he had buried, but which now clamored for acknowledgement. As he scribbled late into the night, he realized that writing demanded vulnerability, that both terrified and liberated him. With every keystroke, memories surfaced. His comrades, the camaraderie, and the sense of purpose that had once defined him. Emily's unwavering support remained a lifeline. She suggested therapy as a means to explore the emotional labyrinth he had been trapped in for too long. Reluctantly, Jack agreed, recognizing that this wasn't just about the lawsuit anymore. It was about unearthing truths he had never meant to face. In those sessions, he wrestled with the implications of his detainment and the deep-seated belief that his experiences rendered him unworthy of compassion. The therapist's questions cut through the defensiveness that had built up over years, forcing Jack to confront the very fabric of his identity. "You survived the battlefield, Jack," the therapist urged during one meeting. "But have you ever truly fought for yourself?" Each session deepened his understanding of self-advocacy. No longer just fighting for acknowledgement, Jack began to take ownership of his narrative. He felt the call to process not just what he endured, but also how he could rise above it. Jack's internal landscape evolved into a battleground of his own making. With each small victory, sharing a poignant memory in therapy, writing an eloquent post for social media to rally support, he cultivated resolve. The idea that he could be more than a victim transformed into a mission to educate others on the complexities faced by disabled veterans. Days turned into weeks as he prepared for the next court date, utilizing the tools he had gathered. His efforts began attracting attention, both nationally and locally, igniting a whisper of hope through online platforms that allowed him to amplify his voice. Yet as momentum built, so did the pressure. Distant threats emerged, including online trolls belittling his cause and those who dismissed his journey. Jack felt the familiar grip of anxiety tightening around him, questioning whether he had stepped too far from his comfort zone. But the fire within him wouldn't extinguish. It crackled to life with renewed vigor. This was his moment to embrace uncertainty, to step into the arena. Just as he had done before, he would confront the enemy, this time not only focusing on the system, but executing calculated moves to counter the detractors who sought to undermine him. The date of the next hearing loomed, an impending reckoning. Would he have the courage to stand firm not just for himself but for those still waiting to be heard? Jack knew that the stakes were high, but with freshly forged confidence and the lessons learned, he planned to navigate the trial ahead no matter the cost. As he sat down to finalize his arguments for the upcoming courtroom confrontation, a sudden realization struck him. This fight wasn't solely about the lawsuit. It was a prelude to something greater concealed in the shadows of his past. A hint of a conspiracy he had yet to uncover, something that could change everything. The time had come to unearth what had long been buried, and Jack felt he was on the brink of an even deeper revelation about himself and the forces arrayed against him. As the day of the hearing approached, Jack found himself paralyzed. Not by his physical limitations, but by the daunting weight of expectation that loomed large in his mind. He had dedicated his waking hours to crafting his arguments, assembling testimonies, and painstakingly preparing a case that could not only validate his own experiences, but also draw attention to the broader injustices faced by fellow veterans. Yet as he stared at the blank page before him, the words eluded him, slipping through his fingers like sand. Emily had urged him to frame his struggle as a way not only to seek justice, but to illuminate what he deemed a conspiracy lurking beneath the surface of his detainment. The notion gnawed at him, tantalizingly close yet obscured by his own fears. In the fleeting moments when doubt crept in, Jack had to remind himself that this was his battle to fight. He had to switch from the role of a victim to that of an architect, designing a future that integrated his past with a hopeful vision. He decided to return to his journal, where he had documented his raw thoughts and emotions. He began to sort through the entries, searching for patterns and insights that might aid him in the courtroom. Each entry revealed threads of truth interwoven with the fabric of his pain and determination. There was power embedded in those words, power he needed to wield on the stand. In therapy, the sessions quickly became a sanctuary where words morphed from mere thoughts into resolutions. He discovered the importance of authenticity in owning his narrative, turning the raw emotions he had once tried to evade into a compelling story that could resonate with others. "You are not just recounting events, Jack," his therapist had said during one particularly illuminating session. "You are a catalyst for understanding, a voice demanded by those who've been silenced." Those words echoed in his mind as he mentally rehearsed his opening statement. He envisioned himself in the courtroom, the air thick with tension, as he prepared to stand alone under the scrutiny of judges and juries. What did it mean to provide testimony? To expose the intent buried beneath layers of bureaucracy? Was he ready? The day before the hearing, Jack took a long, solitary evening walk along the nearby riverbank, the water glistening beneath the dull light of the setting sun. He had finally reached a tipping point. The internal struggle that had kept him shackled felt more like an anchor than a burden. In the quiet of the twilight, Jack made a promise to embrace whatever truth awaited him, even if it was fraught with complications. He would navigate through the dark chasms of his history, armed with the courage to expose it. Yet revelations often come at a price. As he returned home, an unwelcome email appeared in his inbox, a threatening message from an anonymous sender, warning him not to pursue the case or face dire consequences. Fear coursed through him, mingling with determination in equal measure. How far would he go for his cause? The shadows of potential repercussions loomed large, but Jack's dawning understanding that vulnerability and strength were intertwined ignited his resolve. It was time to hold firm against the current, to rally not just for his own redemption but to illuminate the darkness. The first significant step through the threshold of transformation was upon him. Jack steeled himself for an arduous journey ahead, determined to face whatever the courtroom in the future would bring. Little did he know, the scales of justice were about to tip in ways he could never have anticipated. Secrets, allies, and betrayals would emerge. The time had come, not merely for confrontation, but for revelations that would challenge everything he thought he understood about his agency in this fight. As dawn approached, the world held its breath, waiting for Jack's next move. What truth would emerge from the shadows? And what role would he ultimately play in this unfolding drama? The morning light filtered through Jack's window, illuminating the room with a hesitant warmth that felt oddly juxtaposed against the anxiety churning in his stomach. The hearing loomed ahead, a titan waiting to be confronted, and Jack contemplated what it truly meant to share his story. He knew that each word he spoke would have the power to lift him or bury him deeper in the layers of bureaucratic silence. Standing in front of the mirror while preparing for the day, Jack breathed in deeply, staring into his own eyes, searching for clarity and conviction. He could already feel the poking fingers of doubt, but today he chose to combat them with each assertion he practiced. You are not just a war veteran. You are a survivor. You deserve to be heard. As he rolled through the bustling hallways of the courthouse, the sharp click of his wheelchair echoed like thunder, contrasting against the soft whispers of lawyers and visitors. It made him feel exposed, every glance a reminder of his vulnerability, yet something deep within swelled, a newfound sense of purpose. Jack was not merely navigating the halls, he was reclaiming his narrative, transcending the image of a man defined by circumstances. The courtroom loomed ahead and the doors swung open, revealing a stark elevated platform. As he wheeled himself inside, the scrutiny of the judges and spectators felt suffocating, but he grounded himself with awareness of the deeper implications of his presence. He was there for not only his own justice but for the unseen faces of countless others who had suffered in silence. Seated before the panel, Jack recalled the strength he had cultivated through therapy sessions. That fragile empowerment, those shared stories of pain, and the glimpses of resilience became his foundation. He closed his eyes for a moment, conjuring his memories, the camaraderie with fellow soldiers, the laughter shared under the weight of duty, the mystical feeling of purpose found among chaos. The echoes of those experiences started to fill him with confidence. They were why he was there. When his turn came to speak, as he looked at the assembly, he sensed a shift beyond mere juridical scrutiny. He could see curious faces leaning in, a mix of anticipation and skepticism, which dulled his initial trepidation. As he began to articulate his journey, each word was sculpted from the heavy stone of his past, resilient and vivid, He narrated not just facts but the emotional landscape of being caught in an unjust system, depicting the conspiracy that had unraveled his dignity, his humanness stripped away. During pauses, Jack caught glimpses of rapt attention forming. His voice transformed. It was no longer merely recounting a narrative, but sculpting a multidimensional case for understanding the dehumanizing experiences faced by many. As he spoke, he felt the weight of the threatening email from the previous night dispersing into the air, replaced by an assertive energy that captivated his audience. Yet this newfound momentum was not without complications. Halfway through his testimony, the door swung open, revealing an unexpected figure, his estranged brother. Their eyes locked, and a torrent of unspoken words cascaded between them. Jack felt a jolt in his chest. This was not how he envisioned his day unfolding. Would his brother support him, or had he come to challenge him? The questions in Jack's mind spun around like a cyclone. Was this a confrontation or an opportunity for reconciliation? He understood that his brother's presence could deepen the narrative, adding layers of complexity, but also risk dismantling the fortified wall he had carefully built around his emotions. And so, in that fleeting moment amidst the judges, attorneys, and spectators, Jack stood at a precipice, ready to embrace or confront what lay ahead. What truths would be excavated from this familial encounter? Would it illuminate an understanding or entrench him further in conflict? The moment of choice was upon him, compelling him to decide not only what to reveal about his past but also about the relationships that had shaped him. Jack took a deep breath, sensing the air heavy with anticipation, and prepared to confront not just the courtroom but the man who stood before him, ready to challenge the narrative he had fought so hard to reclaim. Jack's heart raced as he locked eyes with his brother, a man he hadn't spoken to in years. This moment, ripe with potential for either connection or discord, bridged the gap of silence that had swallowed their relationship. His brother's presence sent his thoughts spiraling. Would he feel support or judgment? There was no script for this part of his story. The courtroom had prepared him to face the institution, not the very real face of his own family. As the silence stood heavy, Jack shifted slightly in his wheelchair, a minor act that somehow felt monumental. The subtle movement drew the eyes of both judges and the audience towards the two of them. He could feel the weight of expectation not only on himself but also on his brother, whose expression hovered between concern and something resistant. "Jake," Jack started, his voice steady yet cautious. "I didn't think you'd show up." The words tasted foreign on his tongue after years of avoidance. The real question loomed unspoken in his mind. Why was he here now? But instead of a response, Jake stepped forward, taking a deep breath as if bracing himself for impact. "I had to come," he finally said, his tone low yet unwavering. "I heard what you're doing. I wanted to support you." The sincerity hung between them, but Jack sensed hesitation, an underlying current of unresolved anger and hurt boiling beneath the surface. "Support me?" Jack scoffed, a flicker of bitterness igniting. "Is that really why you're here? To see me expose our family's past?" He could feel the guardianship he had so meticulously built around his emotions threatening to crumble. The room seemed to expand, allowing the flood of memories to rush in: awkward Thanksgiving dinners, unacknowledged battles, and the growing distance that had stretched between them like an unbridgeable chasm. "Jack, I know it hasn't been easy for us," Jake pushed back, his voice rising slightly as he crossed his arms in instinctive defense. "And I understand—" "No, you don't understand," Jack interrupted, the frustration boiling to the surface. "You haven't lived through what I have. You haven't had to escape from the shadows of our past every single day." The courtroom, with its sterile atmosphere, momentarily blurred as emotions surged up and out. Jack felt the room fade into mere background noise, the audience momentarily eclipsed by the pain residing within his brother's presence. The judges exchanged glances, sensing the shifting dynamic. Jack quickly caught himself, the realization striking that he was risking not only his testimony, but also his mission by allowing this familial conflict to overshadow his purpose. With a deep breath, he grounded himself again, tapping into those fragments of strength he had nurtured through therapy and his time in service. "I'm here not just for me but for everyone who doesn't have a voice," he said, letting the words flow with intention. "I can't let our past shape my future, or their futures. You can understand that." This was a delicate line he was walking, forging personal growth while reconciling the past. Each word carved out a space for vulnerability, transforming his anger into a platform for mutual understanding. Jake's eyes softened, and Jack recognized a flicker of understanding pass through. "I was there too, you know. I just didn't know how to help," he admitted, his voice almost a whisper. The tension shifted, unspooling the knot of resentment. "Then be here for me now," Jack urged, placing the pieces of his heart on the table, pushing against the weight of their shared history. "Help me wear my scars with pride, not shame." It felt revolutionary to articulate that moment of choice, one rooted in growth, healing, and connection. As Jack finished, a resounding silence enveloped them, and the audience absorbed the raw energy of this intimate exchange. The courtroom, originally a battleground of legalities, morphed into an arena of deep, personal conflict. But just as Jack thought he was making progress, a troubling thought entered his mind. What if Jake's motivations ran deeper than support? What if old loyalties pulled him in another direction entirely? A sudden rap on the desk startled Jack, pulling him back into the fray. The judge, his eyes narrowed, sought to regain control of the courtroom. "We need to refocus on the matter at hand," he said, aiming to redirect the unfolding drama. Yet Jack felt a shift within himself. Understanding that familial ties could be both chains and catalysts ignited a fire that beckoned him forward. This hearing was about more than a past grievance. It had transformed into an opportunity for transformation, a chance to weave the loose threads of his life back together. As the gavel echoed, contrasting judgment loomed just above the pulsating tide of his emotions. Would they hear his truth today? And would he emerge whole, having dared to confront not just the past, but forging new ties in the present? Jack's resolve solidified, knowing that whatever lay ahead in the courtroom, every heartbeat pulsed with a profound, unapologetic need for liberation. And as he prepared for the next round of questioning, Jack heard the whispers of doubt swirl around him, but now they felt distant, replaced by a quiet determination. He would face the truth, his own and others, no matter how jagged. The moment had arrived when Jack would finally use his voice not just to reclaim his narrative, but also to challenge the world that sought to silence him. The culmination of his fight against silence beckoned closer, but what awaited him on the other side remained uncertain. The air was thick with anticipation as Jack prepared to speak again. The courtroom felt like a living entity, its eyes scrutinizing every wrinkle of his determination. As the judge's gavel sounded calling the room to order, Jack could feel his own resolve ignite anew. This was it. Every fiber of his being thrummed with the knowledge that his words could shift paradigms, not just for himself, but for others whispering in the shadow of fear. Even as a rush of adrenaline surged through him, Jack made a choice to remain anchored to his values, channeling the inhale of doubt he had always felt into a strong exhale of purpose. His testimony wasn't merely a recounting of an anguish-laden past. It was a transformational act of defiance, a means to expose the deeply embedded injustices that had shaped his life. "Your Honor," Jack began, his voice cutting through the remnants of tension in the air. "My story is not just mine. It is the story of many who remain unheard." He could feel the eyes of the audience on him, some in curiosity, others in skepticism. But Jack pushed ahead, the resolve within him pushing against the barriers of doubt. "I was merely a soldier trying to serve my country, and I was cast aside like an afterthought when the price of my service became too high." He observed the faces before him, from the jurors who listened intently to the attorneys who watched for his missteps. Some faces mirrored his pain, while others displayed the discomfort of recognition. Each gaze held potential. Each listener had the power to either validate or invalidate his experience. In that moment, he recognized the strength in vulnerability. "To be detained and silenced for simply being who I am should be unacceptable," Jack continued, feeling the weight of his truth stitch itself into the fabric of the hearing. A voice stumbled from the defense table. Are you saying, Mr. Hart, that the government should bear responsibility for the state of your health? The incredulous question sunk into Jack's heart, yet it came as no surprise. He had anticipated this stance, a defense operating on the premise of denial. Anger flickered momentarily within him, but he recognized it as a detour he couldn't afford. Instead, he summoned a level of calm he had cultivated through therapy and resilience training. Yes, Jack answered, his rebuttal poised. Responsibility for the pain inflicted on countless individuals who, like me, were stripped of dignity. The question isn't whether they should, but rather how long will we let them hide behind a facade of bureaucracy when lives are at stake? My disabilities do not define me. The constraints of my wheelchair have never diminished my ability to confront injustice. I represent both my past and the future that could be. A wave of electric energy seemed to pulse through the courtroom, sweeping across the audience like ripples. Within that moment, Jack dared to glance toward Jake. Their eyes met, and for the first time, Jack understood that solidarity could be born from shared scars. The hidden resentment no longer seemed insurmountable. Perhaps it could be a catalyst for healing rather than a weapon. Feeling the moment stretch, Jack sensed the ripple effect of his words beyond the confines of the courtroom. It was less about victory and more about exposure, the unveiling of truth stripped bare for all to see. What he was gaining through this confrontation was something he had always yearned for, a platform for the multitude who faced their own shadows in silence. The moment hung thick in the air, tension palpable as he prepared to delve further into the realities that had made him and the lives he sought to elevate. But just as clarity dawned, drawing out deeper memories of pain juxtaposed with resilience, a harsh cough interrupted. "Let's not pretend this is a charity case," the attorney interjected. Jack felt a surge of frustration, threading through his determination. How many times would he need to confront disdain before the truth was acknowledged? But that impulse toward anger flickered in his heart, quickly coated by a heavier sense of purpose. As the increasingly hostile examination unfolded, Jack felt the stirring of something deeper within him, a recognition that beyond proving his case, he had a chance to define his narrative. He was no mere victim. He was an advocate, piercing through the veils of ignorance. And as the courtroom darkened around him, Jack could feel the beginning of something monumental, a realization that the fight against silence would never truly cease, but he had taken the first step to elevate it. Yet lurking beneath the surface, doubt whispered chilling suggestions. What if this journey would lead him into more dark entanglements than hopes of resolution? As the questions swirled and the room deepened into shadows, Jack sensed an imminent crossroad. Would he remain resolute, or would the weight of history pull him back into isolation? The air thickened with uncertainty as he prepared to answer, feeling the world around him hang on the precipice of his truth. The words hung in the air like an unfinished symphony, and Jack's heart raced. Tension tightened around him, a living entity feeding off his uncertainty. He refused to let doubt dictate his response. He was more than just a soldier in a courtroom. He was a human being whose life had become a testament to resilience amid adversity. In that moment, with every eye trained on him, Jack felt his vulnerability transform into fortified strength. The defense attorney's scoff reverberated in his mind, but as he inhaled sharply, he shifted gears mentally. No longer was he just defending his case. He was elevating a discourse that needed to be had. "Yes, Your Honor," he said, his voice a steady flame against the gale of opposition. "It's actually about accountability." Each word poured out, fueled by the indignities faced, not just by him, but by many who dared not speak. How many more stories will be buried under the weight of bureaucratic indifference? I refuse to conceal my truth or the truth of others like me behind your misconceptions. He carried on, feeling the momentum build within him. The way the lights glanced off the polished wood of the bench reminded him of the discipline he had learned in the military. Each insignificant detail connected him to a self he had been inclined to forget in the shadows of trauma and neglect. "Let me clarify. A disability does not equate to a liability," he continued, locking eyes increasingly with the jurors who appeared conflicted. Hope flickered there, and Jack felt their silent shift, an inner grappling with the story unfolding before them. The government has a duty to protect its citizens, not marginalize them. I stand here for those who were unheard, mistreated, and left out in the dark. As he spoke, Jack felt the sinews of his past interweaving with the narrative taking shape. The anguish wrapped around his words, but so did determination. Each recall of injustice solidified their presence, forming a layer of emotional armor. For every experience of ridicule or betrayal, there grew a seed of motivation to push further, to not just advocate for himself, but for a larger dialogue on respect and dignity. He could sense the uncertainty rippling through the courtroom. Discomforted faces whispered amongst themselves. This was the shift he yearned for, an awakening, an acknowledgement of the intricacies that colored his existence as a veteran with disabilities. Yet the attorney countered with pointed questions, each meant to poke at his resolve. But Jack, don't you think that your situation is outweighed by national security concerns? Aren't you a risk? Every syllable thrust upon him felt like its own trial, but what was once frustration over questions of bias transformed into fierce resilience. He met the attorney's gaze, the ferocity in his own growing. Being human is not a risk, ignorance is. If my existence presents a challenge to the powers that be, then so be it. Let's challenge it together. As the courtroom seemed to hold its collective breath, Jack's mind whirred with possibilities and even greater convictions. He wouldn't just navigate uncertainty, he aimed to transcend it, allowing his experiences to be a beacon of change. There was a momentary pang of fear in acknowledging the enormity of his endeavor, but alongside it surged an unyielding determination to elevate voices that remained tethered in silence. Jack's heart raced, not from fear but from the anticipation of what lay ahead. Would the jury resonate with his plea? Could they grasp the essence of the fight for justice without succumbing to the illusions crafted by fear? The nightmarish potential of a system that deemed him lesser loomed large, but in that moment Jack recognized a poignant truth. He might indeed be standing on the cusp of irrevocable change. This case was no longer confined to the question of legal justice, but indeed delved into societal evolution. As his testimony danced on the knife edge of doubt and courage, a thought crept in. Was he ready to shoulder the mantle of being not just a survivor, but a champion for many more? And as the attorney prepared to launch yet another line of attack, Jack could feel adrenaline course through him once more, locked onto the realization that each moment of truth accumulated power, but a frail uncertainty twisted in the corners of his mind. What sacrifices would he need to make in this greater war? Could he handle the backlash that might come from challenging deep-seated narratives? His thoughts brimming with both hope and trepidation, Jack braced for the reality of what awaited him next. As the attorney stood for another strike, he knew that the time had come to face the nexus of his transformation. Would he emerge not just whole but emboldened? Or would the weight of the confrontation drag him back into the abyss? Jack's breath quickened as the defense attorney leaned forward, his voice cutting through the anticipation like a sharpened blade. So you claim to represent the masses. Tell us, Jack, what exactly qualifies you to speak for those you paint as victims? Is it merely the courage you find behind your disability? The way he emphasized the word disability seemed an attempt to belittle Jack to a mere label, a tactic to manipulate their perception of him. The courtroom's atmosphere thickened. Jack's mind raced as he recalibrated his own sense of purpose. It was as if he were standing on a crumbling precipice, every word he needed at his command, now feeling like quicksand beneath his feet. Yet he realized that the challenge was not only to defend himself but to confront the very perceptions that haunted many, including himself. I'm not just a voice for the voiceless or a veteran struggling against the tide, Jack replied, grounding himself in every ounce of strength he had gathered through years of fighting unseen battles. I embody the shift needed in recognizing strength in struggle, and I invite every one of you in this room to acknowledge that strength doesn't require the absence of imperfection. As he spoke, Jack tapped into the deep reservoir of his experiences. Images of his military service flickered in his mind, finding clarity in chaos, brotherhood forged in moments of high stakes, moments when life seemed to hang in balance. That wasn't just his past, it was a code he had to honor. He could be an instrument for change, not merely because he bore scars, but because he understood the nuances of the fight for justice. The attorney smirked, preparing to agilely counter. But this time Jack envisioned himself as the wall against which their prejudice would collide, not someone who stands back but a force charging forward. You talk of qualifications, but I stand here with lived experience. If we accept every assumption without challenge, aren't we undermining our very democracy? Isn't the true qualification to defend humanity a willingness to understand it? Imperfect as it is? A murmur rippled through the jurors. Jack observed their expressions. Some brows furrowed, others intrigued. In that brief moment, he felt a delicate connection. The narrative he was shaping began to morph into something more significant than him alone. Yet the attorney didn't relent. You operate under the assumption that your suffering grants you insights into others' struggles, but in doing so, you risk reducing complex lives to simplified narratives of struggle. Jack clenched his fists, the intensity in the room amplifying his heartbeat. The flood of familiar emotions rose. The shame of his experiences threatened to overshadow his resolve, but he refused to retreat. I can only share my experience, but that does not lessen the validity of it. Conversations might be uncomfortable, but through discomfort, understanding blossoms. If sharing my story creates a crack in a wall of ignorance, then bring on the discomfort. The courtroom became a whirlwind of emotions, and Jack could feel the energy shift. The glances at one another indicated interest, perhaps even a burgeoning empathy. He was peeling back layers one conversation at a time, challenging not just their perceptions, but his own misconceptions too. This wasn't merely a legal battle anymore. It was a transformation in identity. The thought lingered in Jack's mind that this moment could define him, pushing him toward an enriched understanding of self. The adrenaline surged stronger, fueling clarity amidst chaos. As the attorney faltered momentarily, Jack sensed the spotlight shift. The jurors' gaze locked onto him, considering their own frames of reference. It was then that Jack realized the person he was evolving into. An advocate, a trailblazer, defined not by his barriers but by the truths he dared to vocalize. But whether that evolution would sustain him hinged not only on this case, but the choices he'd make moving forward. Each decision loomed like a fork in the road. Would he navigate this newfound strength to forge ahead? Or would fear of judgment steep him back into conformity? Just then, as Jack continued to process the weight of the moment, the attorney jolted again with a question that pierced deeper than all others. What if you win this battle, Jack, but lose the war of public perception? How do you plan to face a world that sees you as nothing more than a symbol? Jack's throat tightened, the unfiltered reality of the query hitting him with bitter clarity. Facing this war alone felt insurmountable, yet the question illuminated a critical dissonance within. Could he continue this fight as his own champion without compromising his moral vision? Or would he fall victim to becoming a pawn in someone else's game? The courtroom fell silent, eyes fixated on him. Jack needed to dig deeper, to think not just in terms of winning but of transformation. A transformation that pushed him into discomfort willingly, forever navigating the thin line between vulnerability and strength. Flashes of doubt crept in tandem with anticipation, swirling within him as Jack prepared to confront that very reality. Each beat, each heartbeat drumming with potential, yet overshadowed by trepidation. This fight was just beginning, and the real battle loomed ahead, begging the question, what would he sacrifice for an unwavering truth? Jack stood at the crossroads of uncertainty and resolve, searching for clarity within himself as the courtroom held its breath. His past flickered behind him, memories of heroism tinged with intricate pain. This legal battle had evolved beyond mere litigation. It had become a testament to the human spirit. No longer a soldier confined to judgment, he envisioned a horizon brimming with possibility. As his attorney gestured for a break, Jack pulled himself together. The question laid bare by the opposing counsel still echoed. What would he become in the eyes of the world? The answer wasn't so simple, but the truth lit a path before him, like a beacon. If his purpose remained tethered to validation, he was bound to disappointment. Instead, he decided to transcend the narrative and reshape it from within. In the subsequent days, Jack focused on unity. He attended group therapy sessions with fellow veterans, sharing not just struggles but also victories. They exchanged stories that transformed their pain into powerful narratives. Each encounter reinforced his belief that healing was communal, underscoring the connection of shared struggles. As these meetings continued, he found profound empowerment in collective stories, not merely as a soldier, but as an advocate for all who remained unsung. Outside the courtroom, the world began to take notice of his journey. Articles highlighted veterans reclaiming their identities, pushing Jack closer to an audience that needed a voice. Social media became a tool for mobilizing support. The narrative shifted from individual struggle to collective resilience. He still aimed to win the lawsuit, but now it felt secondary to the movement he ignited, an awakening that the fight for dignity transcended personal existence. As Jack wheeled himself down the familiar path to the courthouse for the final hearing, he felt markedly different. The firm ground beneath him felt steadier, and with each push of his wheelchair, he exuded the energy of purpose. The tension in his chest had eased. He was no longer fighting solely for himself but for the vast legion of veterans who waited in the shadows. Inside the courtroom, he sat silently, reflecting on the journey. It had taken time to navigate through anger, shame, and confusion, but each challenge had sculpted him into a different man. The judge's eyes scanned the room. Today, they were not merely on Jack, but upon the very fabric of the injustices faced by veterans. "Mr. Thompson, it's your chance again," the judge said, pausing with intent, sensing the magnitude of Jack's transformation. Jack locked eyes with her, steadying himself. This moment was not fleeting. It was a resolve forged in fire. "Your Honor," he began, his voice calm yet firm, "I won't stand here claiming a heroic mantle to justify my worth. This case was never just about me. It's about everyone whose dignity was diluted under the weight of systemic failings. The only risk present here is the continued silence of those suffering while society dismisses them." With each line, Jack felt the energy shift in the room, an alignment forming around his words as they fell with purpose. "I stand not just as a veteran but as your remind," he continued, "that our worth is immeasurable, no matter our circumstances. If I succeed today, it isn't to elevate one story above others. It's to scream into the void that all lives in this struggle are worthy of respect and agency." His testimony ignited a palpable energy in the court, a groundswell of solidarity that flowed through the audience members captivated by his journey. Facing the opposition, he remained focused on articulating real change and reform without fear of repercussions. He continued, "I remind you, treating people with dignity doesn't dictate their circumstances. Every individual deserves acknowledgement, respect, and justice." As he spoke, he felt the ripple of recognition among the jury. They hung on his every word, suspended in the gravity of an unjust system finally being called out. He closed with a powerful declaration: "The true burdens of our past will not define us if we confront them together. It is in our collective resolve that we can transform pain into strength." The gavel echoed against a silence filled with reflection. Jack understood now. His journey of reclaiming dignity was only the beginning. He had stepped forth, empowered by his past to shape the future. His case was a challenge, but so too was it a transformation, birthing a movement for every silent hero waiting to rise. As he left the courtroom that day, Jack felt the crux of his existence crystallize. He had conquered personal demons and institutional injustices. The narrative centered on him transformed into a shared story, evoking a dialogue long overdue, bridging gaps of understanding amongst the communities that had too long stood apart. Jack Thompson was no longer a mere symbol of adversity. He had emerged as a true champion of dignity, embodying the essence of resilient advocacy. For him, the journey had just begun, not an end, but an invitation to continue amplifying voices, fostering awareness, and fundamentally redefining respect one story at a time. And with that clarity, he finally understood. Transformation began with the willingness to voice discomfort. No longer silent in the shadows, he had cultivated the courage to be seen, heard, and respected. If you resonate with Jack's journey and want to witness more incredible transformations, Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help spread awareness of personal triumphs like Jack's. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Your thoughts matter. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. Your support means everything in uncovering powerful stories and uplifting the voices that deserve to be heard.